the starfield known as Vermilion's Gate stretched across 3 parsecs of contested space, its crimson nebulae swirling like blood and water around the quantum jump points that made faster-than-light travel possible. Commander Kestrel Thane pressed her palm against the viewport of the SC Jeger flagship. Prometheus rising, watching the distant flashes of weapons fire illuminate the void like deadly fireworks. Each burst represented lives lost, ships destroyed, and another step deeper into a war that had already consumed 7 star systems. "Commander, we're receiving transmission bursts from Admiral Talon Ironheart's fleet," reported Lieutenant Zephyr Blackwood from the communications station, his fingers dancing across holographic displays that cast blue light across his angular features. "The Amaterasu forces have taken the 3rd gate. Their blue-shifted vessels are moving in formation toward the primary nexus." Kestrel's jaw tightened as she turned from the viewport, her steel-gray eyes reflecting the tactical displays that surrounded the bridge. The Amaterasu's Blueshift had been humanity's greatest allies during the Void Wars, their quantum-enhanced ships and mystical understanding of space-time manipulation proving invaluable against the mechanical hordes of the Synthesis. But that partnership had shattered 6 months ago when both factions laid claim to the Starfield territories, regions of space where naturally occurring quantum anomalies created stable jump points between distant sectors of the galaxy. The sound of boots on metal decking announced the arrival of Strategic Coordinator Orion Nightfall, his scarred hands carrying a data tablet that glowed with tactical projections. "The situation is deteriorating rapidly," he said without preamble, his voice carrying the weight of countless battles. "Yukiko Starweaver's forces have deployed their reality-bending technology at 3 critical nexus points. If they maintain control of those positions, they can effectively cut off our supply lines to the Outer Rim colonies." Kestrel studied the holographic battlefield that materialized above the central command table, watching as red and blue indicators moved in a complex dance of strategy and counter-strategy. The Amaterasu vessels appeared as elegant crescents of light, their hull designs incorporating flowing curves that seemed to bend space around them. In contrast, the SC Jeger ships displayed humanity's preference for angular efficiency, their gray hulls bristling with weapons arrays and sensor clusters that spoke to decades of hard-won military experience. "What's our current tactical assessment of their capabilities?" Kestrel asked, her fingers tracing the projected battle lines that divided the starfield. Orion's expression grew grim as he manipulated the display, highlighting specific Amaterasu formations. "Their quantum drives allow them to phase shift during combat, making them nearly impossible to target with conventional weapons. Intelligence suggests they've developed new applications of their Blueshift technology, creating localized time distortions that can age our hull plating decades in minutes or slow our reaction times to a crawl." The bridge fell silent except for the steady hum of the ship's quantum core and the soft chiming of monitoring systems. Kestrel felt the weight of command settling on her shoulders like a familiar cloak, the knowledge that thousands of human lives depended on the decisions she would make in the coming hours. The Starfields represented more than strategic territory, they were the key to maintaining humanity's expansion into the galaxy's outer spiral arms, where resource-rich worlds waited to support Earth's growing population. "Commander," Zephyr called from his station, his voice tight with urgency. "We're detecting massive energy signatures from the Amaterasu flagship Celestial Harmony. It appears they're preparing to activate their primary reality anchor." The implications hit Kestrel like a physical blow. The reality anchor was Amaterasu's most devastating weapon, capable of stabilizing local spacetime to such a degree that quantum drives became inoperable. If Yukiko Starweaver succeeded in deploying it within the Starfield's primary nexus, every human ship in the region would be trapped, unable to jump to safety or receive reinforcements. "Signal all fleet commanders," Kestrel ordered, her voice cutting through the bridge's tension like a blade. "We advance on the primary nexus immediately. Whatever the cost, we cannot allow them to complete that deployment." She paused, looking once more at the swirling crimson nebulae that had become humanity's latest battlefield. "And send a priority message to Earth Command. Tell them that if we fail here, the war may already be lost." As the Prometheus Rising began its acceleration toward destiny, Kestrel wondered if the bonds of former alliance could ever be mended, or if humanity and the Amaterasu's Blueshift were destined to tear each other apart among the stars they had once explored together. The crimson light of the nebulae seemed to pulse with ominous promise, as if the universe itself was holding its breath for the battle to come. The space around Vermilion's Gate had transformed into a maelstrom of energy and destruction as the two fleets closed the distance between them. Commander Kestrel Thane watched from the bridge of Prometheus Rising as the first wave of Amaterasu vessels emerged from quantum phase shifts, their hull configurations rippling like liquid mercury as they transitioned between dimensions. The sight still filled her with a mixture of awe and dread, remembering when such displays had been directed against humanity's enemies rather than themselves. "Enemy contact, bearing 27 Mark IV, announced Tactical Officer Reyna Stormwind, her voice steady despite the chaos erupting across her sensor displays. 12 Amaterasu heavy cruisers, for battleships, and what appears to be a new class of vessel we haven't encountered before." Kestrel moved to the tactical station, studying the unknown ship that had appeared alongside Yukiko Starweaver's fleet. It was larger than any Amaterasu vessel on record, its hull seeming to fold in on itself in ways that hurt to look at directly. Waves of distorted space rippled around it like heat mirages, suggesting technology that pushed the boundaries of known physics. "Analysis," she asked Orion Nightfall, who was already running calculations on his mobile command interface. "The energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases," Orion replied, his scarred fingers flying across the holographic controls. "I'm detecting temporal displacement fields, localized gravity wells, and what might be controlled quantum vacuum fluctuations. If I had to guess, they've weaponized their Blueshift technology on a scale we never imagined possible." The communications console erupted with incoming transmissions as the human fleet spread into battle formation. Admiral Talon Ironheart's voice cut through the static, his weathered tone carrying the authority of decades in command. "All units, this is Ironheart. We are outnumbered but not outmatched. Remember what we fight for, the right of humanity to chart its own course among the stars." Lieutenant Zephyr Blackwood's hands moved in practiced patterns across his control surfaces, coordinating communications between the dispersed human fleet. "Commander, the heavy cruiser Ironwool reports successful weapons lock on the Amaterasu lead formation. Captain Vega Shadowhawk requests permission to engage." Before Kestrel could respond, space itself seemed to twist around the Amaterasu vessels. The new unknown ship at the center of their formation pulsed with an electric blue radiance, and suddenly the human targeting solutions became meaningless as their enemies phase-shifted through multiple dimensions simultaneously. Weapons fire that should have found its mark passed harmlessly through empty space where the Amaterasu ships had been microseconds before. "Evasive maneuvers," Kestrel commanded as return fire erupted from the enemy formation. But these weren't conventional energy weapons. Beams of coherent spacetime distortion lanced toward the human ships, and where they struck, metal aged centuries and seconds. The destroyer Valiant Heart took a direct hit to its port side, and Kestrel watched in horror as that section of the hull crumbled to dust while the rest of the ship remained intact. "They're targeting our structural integrity at the molecular level," Orion reported, his voice grim with understanding. "Those aren't weapons in any traditional sense, they're accelerating entropy itself." The battle descended into a nightmare of physics-defying warfare as both fleets engaged at ranges that stretched across millions of kilometers. Human ships relied on their superior numbers and firepower, coordinating attacks and patterns that had served them well against conventional enemies. But the Amaterasu's Blueshift had evolved beyond conventional warfare, their vessels dancing through dimensions as they struck with weapons that seemed to rewrite the fundamental laws of reality. Kestrel gripped the command chair as Prometheus Rising shuddered under the impact of a near miss from an entropy beam. Around her, the bridge crew worked with the desperate efficiency of those who knew their survival depended on split-second decisions. Emergency lighting cast red shadows across their faces as damage reports flooded in from throughout the ship. "Hull breach on Deck 7, reported Chief Engineer Magnus Ironforge over the internal communications system. We're vending atmosphere, but the breach it's not behaving like conventional damage. The metal around the impact site is aging at an accelerated rate, spreading like some kind of temporal infection." Through the chaos of battle, Kestrel caught sight of the Amaterasu flagship Celestial Harmony as it materialized at the center of the human formation. For a moment, she could see Yukiko Starweaver's vessel clearly. Its flowing hull design incorporated elements that seemed to shift between states of matter, sometimes solid metal, sometimes pure energy, sometimes something that existed in the spaces between dimensions. "Signal from the celestial harmony," Zephyr announced, his voice cutting through the din of battle. "It's on all frequencies, broadcast and clear." The main display shimmered and resolved into the image of Yukiko Starweaver herself. The Amaterasu commander appeared unchanged by the months of warfare, her features serene despite the battle raging around her flagship. Her dark eyes held depths that spoke of knowledge gained through communion with the fundamental forces of the universe, and when she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that resonated in ways that seemed to bypass normal hearing. "Kestrel Thane," Yukiko said, her words somehow reaching across the vacuum of space with perfect clarity. "You fight for a dream that will consume itself. The Starfields cannot be claimed by force, they must be understood, embraced, become one with the cosmic flow. Turn back now, before humanity destroys what it seeks to possess." Kestrel met those alien eyes through the display, feeling the weight of their former friendship like a physical ache. "The Starfields belong to whoever has the will to hold them, Yukiko. Humanity didn't come this far to bow before forces we can't understand." As if in response to her words, the mysterious vessel at the heart of the Amaterasu formation pulsed with renewed energy, and Kestrel realized that the true battle was only beginning. The quantum storm intensified around Vermilion's Gate as both fleets committed their reserves to the escalating battle. Commander Kestrel Thane studied the tactical displays with growing concern, watching as humanity's technological advantages were systematically neutralized by the Amaterasu's reality-bending capabilities. 3 human destroyers had already been lost to entropy weapons, their hulls aged to cosmic dust in minutes, while the enemy fleet seemed to dance between dimensions with impunity. "Our conventional weapons are proving ineffective," Strategic Coordinator Orion Nightfall reported, his scarred hands manipulating holographic battle projections. "The Amaterasu ships phase shift the moment our targeting systems achieve lock. We might as well be shooting at ghosts." Lieutenant Zephyr Blackwood looked up from his communications station, his face illuminated by the blue glow of incoming data streams. "Commander, I'm receiving reports from across the fleet. Captain Luna Nightblade of the Defiant Storm says her crew has noticed a pattern in the enemy phase shifts. They're not random, there's a rhythm to when the Amaterasu vessels become tangible." Kestrel felt a spark of hope ignite in her chest. Throughout human history, their species had survived not through superior technology or mystical understanding, but through pattern recognition and adaptive thinking. If there was a rhythm to the enemy's defenses, human minds could find a way to exploit it. "Transfer Captain Nightblade's observations to the tactical computer," Kestrel ordered. "Cross-reference with our sensor logs and look for any correlations with energy signatures, gravitational fluctuations, or quantum field variations." As the analysis progressed, the battle continued to rage around them. The mysterious Amaterasu vessel at the center of their formation had begun to emit pulses of distorted spacetime that created localized time dilation fields. Human ships caught in these regions found their crews aging rapidly while their quantum cores struggled to maintain coherent energy flow. The cruiser Stellar Pride had been trapped in one such field for only minutes, but emergency signals indicated that its crew had experienced several subjective hours of accelerated time. "Pattern analysis complete," announced Tactical Officer Reyna Stormwind, her voice tight with excitement. "The Amaterasu phase shifts are synchronized with the quantum fluctuations of the starfield itself. They're using the natural dimensional instabilities as a power source, but that means they're vulnerable during the brief moments when the local spacetime returns to baseline." Kestrel studied the data flowing across her command interface, her mind racing through the tactical implications. The window of vulnerability was measured in microseconds, requiring precision timing that pushed human reflexes beyond their natural limits. But humanity had always excelled at building tools to extend their capabilities. "Signal all ship commanders," Kestrel announced, her voice carrying across the fleet's communication network. "We're implementing firing pattern Delta 79. All weapons will be synchronized to target the quantum baseline periods. Tactical computers will control firing sequences, human reaction times aren't fast enough for this type of engagement." Admiral Talon Ironheart's voice crackled over the communications system from his flagship Iron Determination. "Kestrel, are you certain about this? We'll be essentially fighting blind, trusting our computers to identify targets we can't even see." "It's what we do, Admiral," Kestrel replied, her steel-gray eyes reflecting the chaos of battle around them. "Humans adapt. We find patterns where others see chaos, and we build tools to overcome our limitations. That's how we survived the Ice Ages, conquered our home world, and earned our place among the stars." The human fleet began to reconfigure, their ships spreading into a formation that maximized coverage while maintaining synchronized firing arcs. The quantum-enhanced targeting computers aboard each vessel began to calculate probability matrices that tracked the dimensional phase states of local spacetime, predicting the brief windows when the Amaterasu ships would be forced to return to normal space. Chief Engineer Magnus Ironforge's voice echoed through the bridge from the engineering deck. "Commander, I've managed to isolate the temporal infection from that entropy weapon hit. The affected sections are sealed off, but I've discovered something interesting. The aging effect follows quantum mechanical principles. It can be reversed if we can generate sufficient inverse temporal energy." Kestrel felt another piece of the puzzle click into place. "Can you weaponize that discovery?" "Give me 20 minutes and access to the main deflector array," Magnus replied, his voice carrying the confidence of an engineer who had never met a problem he couldn't solve. "I'll show these reality benders that humans can learn to manipulate time as well as they can." As Magnus and his team worked frantically in the engineering sections, the coordinated human assault began. Hundreds of weapons fired in perfect synchronization, their energy beams converging on points in space that appeared empty to the naked eye. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, one by one, Amaterasu vessels materialized around the impact points, their hull plating scarred by weapons fire that had found its mark during their vulnerable phase transitions. The enemy fleet recoiled in surprise, their elegant formations disrupting as several ships suffered significant damage. For the first time since the battle began, human weapons had successfully struck targets that seemed immune to conventional attack. Yukiko Starweaver's voice cut across all communication frequencies, her tone carrying notes of what might have been admiration. "Clever, Kestrel Thane. Your species continues to surprise with its adaptability. But you understand only the surface of forces that run deeper than the foundations of reality itself." The mysterious vessel at the center of the Amaterasu formation began to glow with an intensity that made the surrounding stars seem dim by comparison. Whatever Yukiko was preparing, Kestrel realized that humanity's moment of advantage might be short-lived. The real test of human ingenuity was about to begin. The space around Vermilion's Gate convulsed as the mysterious Amaterasu vessel began its final transformation. Commander Kestrel Thane watched in fascination and horror as the ship's hull seemed to unfold like an origami flower made of crystallized spacetime, revealing an interior that pulsed with energies that predated the formation of galaxies. This was the reality anchor Yukiko Starweaver had threatened to deploy, a weapon that could lock local space into a single-dimensional state, trapping any vessel dependent on quantum drive technology. "Energy readings are off the scale," reported Tactical Officer Raina Stormwind, her voice strained as she struggled to interpret sensor data that challenged the limits of human understanding. "Whatever that thing is, it's drawing power directly from the quantum vacuum. I'm detecting gravitational waves, temporal distortions, and energy signatures that don't match any known physical phenomena." Strategic Coordinator Orion Nightfall moved between command stations, his scarred hands coordinating the desperate human response. "All fleet units are reporting quantum drive instabilities. If that device fully activates, we'll be stranded here while they pick us apart with conventional weapons." Lieutenant Zephyr Blackwood's communication systems erupted with priority signals from across the human fleet. "Commander, Captain Vega Shadowhawk of the Ironwool reports that her ship's quantum core is already showing signs of dimensional lock. Chief Engineer Magnus Ironforge says he needs 10 more minutes to complete his temporal reversal weapon." Kestrel felt the weight of impossible decisions pressing down on her shoulders. 10 minutes might as well be 10 hours when facing a weapon that could rewrite the fundamental laws of physics in local space. But throughout human history, their species had survived by refusing to accept the impossible, by finding ways to turn disadvantage into opportunity. Signal all ships to concentrate fire on the reality anchor, Kestrel commanded, her voice cutting through the chaos of the bridge. Even if our quantum drives fail, we still have enough firepower to crack a moon. If that device is drawing power from the quantum vacuum, it might be vulnerable to massive energy disruption. The human fleet responded with the desperate courage that had carried their species from cave dwellings to star ships. Hundreds of weapons batteries opened fire simultaneously, their combined energy output equivalent to the total power generation of a small star. The beams converged on the unfolding Amaterasu device, striking barriers of crystallized spacetime that scattered the attack into prismatic displays of impossible beauty. No effect, Reyna reported, her voice tight with frustration. The energy is being absorbed and converted into additional power for the reality anchor. We're actually making it stronger. Through the bridge's viewport, Kestrel could see the device reaching its final configuration. The geometric patterns of its hull had resolved into a structure that seemed to exist in more dimensions than human minds could comfortably process, its surface reflecting images of alternate realities where the battle had already been won or lost in countless different ways. Commander, Chief Engineer Magnus Ironforge's voice crackled over the internal communications system. I may have a solution, but it's going to require a level of risk that violates every safety protocol in the book. Explain, Kestrel replied, knowing that conventional safety had become a luxury they could no longer afford. The reality anchor works by synchronizing local spacetime to a single quantum state, Magnus explained, his words coming rapid fire as he worked. But if I can overload our own quantum core and create a massive dimensional instability, it might disrupt their synchronization long enough for the fleet to escape. The implications hit Kestrel like a physical blow. You're talking about detonating our quantum drive. That would destroy the ship and everyone aboard. Not necessarily, Magnus replied, though his voice carried less certainty than his words suggested. If I time it correctly, the dimensional shockwave might throw us clear before the ship is completely destroyed. It's a 1 in 1,000 chance, but it's better odds than waiting for them to complete the reality lock. Kestrel looked around the bridge at her crew, seeing the same desperate determination in their faces that had driven humanity to challenge gods and devils for their place in the universe. Lieutenant Zephyr Blackwood nodded once, his young face set with resolve. Tactical Officer Reyna Stormwind's hands remained steady on her controls despite the impossible odds they faced. Strategic Coordinator Orion Nightfall met her eyes and spoke the words that sealed their fate. It's what humans do, Commander. We choose our own ending. Before Kestrel could respond, Admiral Talon Ironheart's voice cut across the communication channels. All ships, this is Ironheart. Prometheus Rising is preparing to make a run on the reality anchor. All fleet units will withdraw to minimum safe distance and prepare for immediate quantum jump on my signal. Admiral, we haven't discussed Kestrel began, but Ironheart's weathered voice interrupted her. Commander Thane, you've served with distinction, but this is my decision to make. The fleet needs to survive to continue the fight. History will remember what you and your crew do here today. Kestrel felt tears she hadn't expected sting her eyes as she looked once more at the swirling crimson nebulae that had become humanity's battleground. In the distance, she could see the elegant curves of the Celestial Harmony, Yukiko Starweaver's flagship, holding position near the reality anchor as if its commander wanted to witness the final act of their former friendship. Signal the fleet to withdraw, Kestrel ordered, her voice steady despite the emotions threatening to overwhelm her. And send a message to Earth Command. Tell them that humanity claims the right to determine its own destiny among the stars, no matter the cost. As Prometheus Rising began its final approach toward the reality anchor, Kestrel wondered if the bonds between species could ever be truly broken, or if some connections transcended even the boundaries between life and death. The answers, she realized, lay somewhere in the quantum storm that was about to consume them all. The final approach toward the reality anchor stretched across subjective hours as Prometheus Rising carved through space that had begun to solidify around the Amaterasu weapon. Commander Kestrel Thane felt the ship's quantum drives struggling against the increasing dimensional resistance, their harmonic frequencies slowly synchronizing with the alien device's reality-stabilizing field. Around them, space itself was becoming rigid, losing the quantum flexibility that made faster-than-light travel possible. Quantum core containment at 40% and falling, Chief Engineer Magnus Ironforge reported from the engineering deck, his voice carrying the calm precision of a man who had made peace with his mortality. The reality anchor is forcing our drive systems into a single-dimensional state. We have maybe 5 minutes before the containment field collapses entirely. Lieutenant Zephyr Blackwood monitored the withdrawal of the human fleet, watching as ship after ship vanished into quantum jump just beyond the reality anchor's influence. Admiral Ironheart's flagship is the last to withdraw, he announced. All other vessels have successfully reached minimum safe distance. Strategic Coordinator Orion Nightfall studied the tactical displays with the intensity of a scholar reading ancient texts, searching for any detail that might improve their chances of survival. The reality anchor's power source appears to be self-sustaining once fully activated. Even if we disrupt it, the Amaterasu could rebuild it within weeks. Kestrel nodded grimly, understanding that their sacrifice would buy time rather than victory. But time was what humanity had always needed most, time to adapt, to learn, to find new solutions to impossible problems. Any word from Yukiko's flagship? The Celestial Harmony is holding position 2,000 kilometers from the reality anchor, Zephyr replied. No communications, but our sensors are detecting massive energy buildups throughout their fleet. They're preparing for something. Through the bridge's viewport, the reality anchor had reached its final configuration, a geometric impossibility that seemed to exist in more dimensions than local space should have been able to contain. Its crystalline surfaces reflected fragments of alternate realities, showing glimpses of battles that might have been, victories and defeats playing out in infinite variation. At its heart, a sphere of pure darkness pulsed with the rhythm of a universe breathing. Magnus, Kestrel called over the internal communications system, initiate the quantum core overload on my mark. Make sure the dimensional shockwave is directed toward the reality anchor's power core. Understood, Commander. The overload sequence will take approximately 90 seconds once initiated. After that point, we'll be committed to our course regardless of circumstances. Tactical Officer Reyna Stormwind's sensor displays erupted with new contacts as the Amaterasu fleet began to move. Commander, the entire enemy formation is converging on our position. Yukiko Starweaver's flagship is accelerating directly toward us. Kestrel felt a chill of understanding race down her spine. Yukiko wasn't trying to stop them, she was positioning her ship to intercept the quantum shockwave when Prometheus Rising's drive core detonated. The Amaterasu commander intended to sacrifice her own vessel to protect the reality anchor, ensuring that humanity's desperate gambit would fail. She knows what we're planning, Orion observed, his scarred features grim with the mathematics of mutual destruction. If the Celestial Harmony absorbs the dimensional shockwave, their ship will be destroyed but the reality anchor will remain intact. The communication console chimed with an incoming transmission on a frequency that bypassed all normal encryption protocols. Yukiko Starweaver's image appeared on the main display, her serene features unchanged despite the chaos erupting around her flagship. Behind her, the bridge of the Celestial Harmony pulsed with organic curves that seemed to grow rather than being constructed. Kestrel Thane, Yukiko said, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated through dimensions beyond normal hearing. You would destroy yourself to deny us victory, but such sacrifice only proves that humanity still thinks in terms of conquest rather than understanding. The Starfields cannot be claimed through force, they must be embraced as part of the cosmic flow. Kestrel met her former friend's eyes through the display, feeling the weight of everything that had brought them to this moment. Understanding won't matter if humanity is trapped in a single star system while the galaxy moves on without us. We need those jump routes, Yukiko. Our people are counting on expansion to survive. And what of survival that comes at the cost of cosmic harmony? Yukiko replied, her dark eyes reflecting depths that spoke of communion with forces beyond human comprehension. Your species seeks to impose its will upon the universe, but some forces cannot be commanded, only joined. The reality anchor pulsed with increasing intensity, its gravitational effects beginning to distort the space around both ships. Kestrel felt Prometheus Rising shudder as structural stresses built throughout the hull, the vessel's quantum drives fighting a losing battle against dimensional forces that sought to lock them into a single layer of existence. "Magnus, begin the overload sequence," Kestrel commanded, her voice carrying across the bridge with finality. "All hands, prepare for quantum core detonation in 90 seconds. As the countdown began, Yukiko's expression shifted subtly, showing what might have been sadness beneath her mystical composure. "Goodbye, old friend. May the cosmos remember what we both tried to preserve." The transmission ended as the celestial harmony continued its intercept course, its elegant hull beginning to phase shift between dimensions as it prepared to absorb the coming shockwave. Around them, the reality anchor reached full power, and Kestrel felt the universe itself holding its breath for the collision between human determination and alien transcendence. In the final seconds before detonation, she wondered if there might have been another way, a path that preserved both species' dreams among the stars. But time had run out for such possibilities, and all that remained was the choice each commander had made in service to their people's survival. The quantum core reached critical mass, and the universe prepared to judge the worth of their sacrifice. The quantum core of Prometheus Rising reached the point of no return as Chief Engineer Magnus Ironforge's carefully calculated overload sequence entered its final phase. Commander Kestrel Thane gripped her command chair as the ship's hull began to resonate with harmonics that seemed to echo from the birth of the universe itself. Around them, space twisted into configurations that human eyes were never meant to witness, reality bending under forces that challenged the fundamental laws of physics. 60 seconds to detonation, Magnus announced over the internal communications system, his voice steady despite the cataclysm building in the engineering sections. "All hands, brace for dimensional displacement. This is going to be unlike anything we've experienced." Lieutenant Zephyr Blackwood's communication console erupted with signals from across local space as both fleets detected the building energy cascade. "Commander, Admiral Ironheart is attempting to re-establish quantum jump capability. He wants to bring the fleet back to assist us." "Negative," Kestrel replied firmly, her steel-gray eyes reflecting the chaotic energies building around them. "The reality anchor's influence extends too far. Any ship that enters this region will be trapped with us. Signal the Admiral to maintain safe distance and prepare for." She paused, searching for words to describe what was about to happen. "Prepare for unprecedented quantum phenomena." Through the bridge's viewport, the celestial harmony continued its intercept course, Yukiko Starweaver's flagship phase shifting through dimensions as it positioned itself between Prometheus Rising and the reality anchor. The Amaterasu vessel's organic curves seemed to pulse with life, its hull configurations adapting in real time to handle the massive energies that would soon wash over it. Strategic Coordinator Orion Nightfall studied his tactical displays with the focus of a man trying to solve an equation that would determine the fate of civilizations. "The quantum shockwave will propagate along 11-dimensional matrices," he reported, his scarred hands manipulating holographic projections that showed the predicted blast effects. "If the celestial harmony successfully intercepts it, the energy will be absorbed into their ship's phase shift capabilities and dispersed across multiple dimensional layers." Tactical Officer Reyna Stormwind's sensors detected massive changes in the reality anchor's power output. "The Amaterasu device is drawing additional energy from the quantum vacuum. It's preparing to absorb whatever dimensional disruption we create and convert it into increased stability field strength." 30 seconds to detonation, Magnus announced, and Kestrel could hear the awe in his voice as he monitored forces that no human engineer had ever controlled before. "Commander, the quantum cascade is beginning to interact with local spacetime in ways our models didn't predict. We're not just creating a dimensional shockwave, we're tearing holes in the fabric of reality itself." Kestrel felt a chill of realization as she understood the true magnitude of what they were about to unleash. The overloaded quantum core wasn't just going to disrupt the reality anchor, it was going to create a cascade failure that could tear open permanent rifts in dimensional space. Such rifts might provide new pathways for faster-than-light travel, but they could also destabilize entire star systems if they grew beyond control. "Yukiko," she whispered, finally understanding her former friend's true intention. The celestial harmony wasn't just trying to protect the reality anchor, it was positioning itself to contain the dimensional cascade, to prevent the shockwave from creating uncontrolled rifts that could threaten both human and Amaterasu territories. The communication console chimed with an incoming transmission from the celestial harmony, and Yukiko Starweaver's image appeared one final time. Her serene features showed no fear, only a deep sadness that seemed to encompass the tragedy of two allied species forced into conflict by circumstances beyond their control. "The cosmos will remember what we tried to build together," Yukiko said, her voice carrying harmonics that bypassed normal hearing and spoke directly to the heart. "Perhaps in the rifts we create today, future generations will find the pathways to understanding we could not discover in life." 15 seconds to detonation, Magnus reported, and Kestrel could feel the ship beginning to come apart around them as the quantum cascade reached critical mass. The reality anchor pulsed with energies that turned space itself solid, while the celestial harmony began its final phase shift sequence, preparing to absorb forces that would tear apart the atomic structure of normal matter. Between them, Prometheus Rising hung at the center of a growing dimensional storm that threatened to rewrite the laws of physics and local space. "All hands," Kestrel announced over the ship's communication system, her voice carrying to every human soul aboard their doomed vessel, "It has been an honor to serve with you among the stars. History will remember that humanity chose its own destiny, no matter the cost." As the quantum core reached detonation point, Kestrel thought she saw something impossible through the bridge's viewport, a brief glimpse of another reality where the war had never begun, where human and Amaterasu ships explored the starfields together in peaceful cooperation. Then the universe exploded around them in a cascade of liberated dimensions, and everything she had ever known vanished into the quantum storm. The dimensional shockwave erupted outward at speeds that transcended light itself, carrying with it the combined hopes and dreams of two species who had loved each other enough to die rather than surrender their vision of tomorrow. In the heart of the explosion, reality tore open like fabric, revealing glimpses of the infinite possibilities that lay beyond the boundaries of normal space and time. The dimensional cascade that erupted from Prometheus Rising's quantum core detonation rewrote the fundamental structure of space-time within a radius of 12 light-years. Where the starfield of Vermilion's Gate had once swirled with crimson nebulae and stable jump points, now reality itself bore permanent scars, rifts in the fabric of existence that pulsed with energies from the earliest moments of cosmic creation. Admiral Talon Ironheart stood on the bridge of his flagship Iron Determination 3 days after the explosion, studying sensor readings that challenged every principle of physics he had learned in 4 decades of military service. The human fleet had withdrawn to what they believed was a safe distance, but space around them continued to exhibit properties that suggested the laws of nature were still settling into new configurations. "Report from the Science Division," announced Captain Vega Shadowhawk, her weathered features reflecting the blue glow of holographic displays that showed the transformed battlefield. "The dimensional rifts are stable and appear to be self-sustaining. Long-range sensors detect similar phenomena emerging throughout the contested starfield regions. It's as if the cascade created a chain reaction that's still propagating." Through the bridge's viewport, the space where Prometheus Rising and the celestial harmony had made their final sacrifice showed no trace of either vessel. Instead, a geometric structure of crystallized spacetime hung in the void like a monument to forces beyond mortal understanding. The structure pulsed with energies that seemed to echo from multiple dimensions simultaneously, creating patterns of light that human eyes could barely process. "Any sign of survivors?" Ironheart asked, though his voice carried little hope. The energies unleashed during the dimensional cascade would have reduced normal matter to its component quarks within microseconds. "Negative, sir," Shadowhawk replied. "However, our quantum physicists believe that consciousness might persist in alternate dimensional states under extreme conditions. Dr. Elena Voidwalker's team has detected what they describe as coherent information patterns embedded in the rift structures." The implications sent a chill through Ironheart's aging bones. The possibility that some echo of Kestrel Thane and her crew might exist within the dimensional tiers was both comforting and deeply unsettling. Such existence would be beyond anything resembling human life, a state of being that transcended the boundaries between thought and reality. Communications Officer Zara Nightwhisper looked up from her station with an expression of barely controlled amazement. Admiral, we're receiving transmissions through the dimensional rifts. The signals are complex. They appear to contain navigation data for previously unknown jump routes that bypass the old Starfield network entirely. Ironheart moved to the communications station, studying the incoming data streams that flickered with patterns reminiscent of both human efficiency and Amaterasu elegance. The navigation protocols described pathways through folded space that would allow faster-than-light travel across distances that had previously required months of conventional flight. Source of the transmissions, he asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Unknown, sir, but the data encoding contains elements consistent with both human and Amaterasu quantum signature patterns. It's as if the information is being transmitted by a hybrid consciousness. 3 sectors away, in the space where the Amaterasu fleet had withdrawn to mourn their losses, Fleet Commander Takeshi Moonweaver studied similar transmissions aboard his flagship Eternal Lotus. The elegant curves of his ship's bridge seemed to resonate with harmonics that carried memories of Yukiko Starweaver's sacrifice, her final act of devotion to the cosmic balance she had spent her life trying to preserve. The rifts sing with voices we recognize, reported navigation specialist Kenji Starwhisper, his voice carrying the reverence of one who communed with forces beyond normal understanding. Yukiko-san's essence echoes through the dimensional tiers, joined with the determination of our former human allies. They have become something new, a bridge between our species built from their combined sacrifice. Moonweaver closed his eyes and felt the subtle vibrations that ran through his ship's organic hull, patterns that spoke of transformation and possibility. The dimensional rifts were not just scars left by the battle, they were doorways to a new age of exploration, pathways that neither species could have discovered alone. In the months that followed, human and Amaterasu exploration teams began to map the rift network, following navigation data that arrived daily through channels that seemed to exist outside normal space-time. The new routes allowed both species to bypass the contested starfields entirely, opening access to regions of the galaxy that had been unreachable through conventional means. The war gradually transformed into something resembling its original purpose, the exploration of cosmic mysteries that neither species could unravel alone. Human determination and Amaterasu transcendence proved complementary when applied to the challenges of rift navigation, leading to joint expeditions that pushed the boundaries of known space. But in the quiet moments between discoveries, both species remembered the price that had been paid for their expanded horizons. The dimensional rifts pulsed with energies that carried echoes of familiar voices, reminders of those who had chosen to become part of the cosmic flow rather than surrender their dreams of tomorrow. Admiral Ironheart often stood before the memorial crystal that had been erected in Earth's orbital city, its surface inscribed with the names of all who had died at Vermilion's Gate. Sometimes, in the reflection of distant stars, he thought he could see Kestrel Thane's steel-gray eyes looking back at him with approval. The human spirit had found a way to chart its course among the stars, even if that path led through dimensions that transcended the boundaries of life and death. The rifts between stars continued to sing with voices that remembered friendship, sacrifice, and the endless possibilities that awaited those brave enough to step beyond the horizon of the known. In their crystalline depths, consciousness had become something new, eternal, transcendent, and forever reaching toward the infinite mysteries that lay waiting in the dark between the worlds.